This episode is brought to you by Bound Hat Company. Discover Bound Hat Company, where high-quality hats meet a greater purpose. Each hat is designed not only for style, but also to give back, with proceeds supporting charities like the PTSD Foundation of America. Whether for the outdoors or everyday wear, Bound Hat Company has the perfect hat for any occasion. Shop now at www.boundhatco.com and join the movement to support veterans and meaningful causes. Bound Hat Co. Style that makes a difference.
The following podcast discusses sensitive topics. Listener discretion is advised. If you or someone you know is struggling, call or text 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline for 24/7 confidential support.
Welcome to Survival in the Trenches, Life Beyond Loss, a podcast where we share the powerful stories of those who have faced extraordinary loss and found the strength to push forward and triumph. These are real journeys of resilience, courage, and hope. Join us as we uncover what it means to rise above, even in the darkest of times. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Survival in the Trenches. My name is Kelly Chandler. We are very honored today to have Steve Kiefer with us to talk about life beyond loss and how he is turning tragedy into purpose. Thank you so much today, Stephen, for being with us. We are thrilled to have you with us today.
Thank you for having me, Kelly. Thank you.
Absolutely. Before we get into why exactly we're sitting here today with you, I wanted to take a step back in time and just tell the audience a little bit more about you as a person, where you grew up, and maybe what your aspirations were as a young man, and how you formed a family, and from there we'll go into what's driving our conversation today.
All right, great. Well, I'm speaking to you today from Detroit, Michigan, which is my hometown. I grew up in the Detroit area. I was the son of a Ford Motor Company engineer, so we were a definite automotive family, and I kind of grew up in the Detroit area working on cars all my younger days. I ended up going to university here in the state, Michigan State University, as a mechanical engineer, and then to the University of Michigan for an MBA. So I've got kind of a foot in both of those rivalries. I hired into General Motors, much to my father's dismay, because Ford Motor Company is a very family company. But I hired into General Motors as a 19-year-old engineering student, and just retired 2 years ago after 40 years with them. So it was a great career. Over the course of my career, I worked, in the early days as an engine engineer, and then into some management positions. And in my final couple of roles, I ran the global purchasing and supply chain activity for General Motors, and then I ran the international business for General Motors, which is about a million vehicles that we sell in about 60 countries around the world. I retired from that about 2 years ago to focus my effort on the Kiefer Foundation, which we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, that's pretty incredible. You don't hear, well, at least this day and age, you don't hear a lot of people that stay with a company for that amount of time. That's pretty commendable. That's a long haul. So, and you're definitely a Michigan guy. I mean, you've been there for a while, and you've been to 2 different schools, and you're still there. So that says a lot about you must like it there. I've never been. So
I do, and it's my home state. It's a beautiful place to be, especially in the summer. If you like snow, it's great in the winter as well. But over the course of my 40 years with GM, I was fortunate enough to spend about 15 overseas, and I went over in 1993 as a young engineer, and shortly after got married and had my first child in Luxembourg in Europe, and the second child came to us in Japan. That was Mitchel. So Mitchel was made in Japan.
Wow.
And then on to our 2 daughters that were born back here in Detroit, and we managed to take them back over to Europe 2 more times. So it was a great career. It's been a great chance to expose my 4 children to the international lifestyle. They all speak French, and they're all very comfortable on the world stage. So it's been a great experience for our family.
I can imagine. And that's wonderful. It's funny. One of our sons is getting ready to get his first, real job. And I'm like, you could travel the world with this company. Take advantage. If you can work for a company, it sounds like you were able to do so many amazing things, especially having children in other countries, rather. It's pretty fascinating. And the fact that they speak another language, what a benefit, right? Yeah. So it's pretty cool. So about your family. So you have 4 children.
Mm-hmm.
And you, where did you meet your wife? Were you in the States here, or did you grow up with
Yeah, we
her?
met. Yeah, we actually met in the Detroit area. It was a blind date from a mutual friend, and we were together for several years. And then I went off to Europe for my first assignment, while she stayed home and planned a wedding for about 9 months.
Wow.
We got married in the fall of 1993.
Wow. That's
And
awesome.
I took her immediately afterwards to Europe for the start of our new life there. And a couple of years later, our first son Blake was born in Luxembourg, as I mentioned.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. So I'm sure it was interesting having kids overseas, but it sounds like everything worked out just fine. And you were back. When did you come back to be in Michigan, like permanently? Was that
Yeah, it was actually the summer of 2013. We were back here visiting, and my son Mitchell, who was a hockey player, an ice hockey player as a goalie, he got roped into some tryouts here in Michigan, and the coach fell in love with him and said he wanted to put him on the team. So that was the beginning of the end. Mitchell decided he wanted to come back to Detroit to play for Detroit Catholic Central, which is kind of
okay?
the dominant hockey team here, and we agreed to let him come back, and then the other three children said they wanted to come back, and then the rest was history. We all moved back, so we literally moved back here in 2013 to have Mitchell play high school hockey.
That is pretty cool. I read about his history being a goalie, right? He was a goalie.
Yeah,
And you had mentioned something about goalies are kind of quirky, like they have their own vibe or personality. And I understand that being a hockey mom of three boys, none of them played goalie, but I get what you're saying. Funny enough, they're just a different breed. So,
yeah. If you know hockey players, you know the personality of goalies, and actually you know the personality of hockey goalie moms and dads. We're a
yeah,
bit different. Well, I spent the better part of his life behind the net, just acting like I was part of the game. So
sure.
kind of what we do. It's a tough role to be a goalie mom or dad.
I agree, and we joke because they get up and they switch sides when the goalie switches sides, and so
Yeah,
it's funny. And we told our friend that who just her son just became a hockey goalie that you're not a hockey mom or a hockey goalie mom until you get up and move. Like you
that's
have to
right.
move when they switch sides. So anyway, I understand where you're coming from, and that's pretty exciting. He was able to pursue that, and he was so interested in it. So well, I want to get into why we're sitting here today. And one of our areas that we focus on in survival in the trenches is life beyond loss and turning tragedy into purpose. And unfortunately, and you can share the story in detail, your son Mitchell was killed by a distracted driver. And I'm so very sorry to learn about your story. And I know that as a parent, I am very certain that is something that you think about every single day. And it's something that you wish never would have happened. And through all that, you have started a foundation, which is incredible. When I look at all the details of what you've done, you have started something that is actually creating purpose and this from the standpoint that you're saving lives and you're showing an economic impact by working with government and just getting the word out and really making a change through behaviors and showing those outcomes that a simple change can result in a much better outcome. So I was hoping that you could explain to our listeners what exactly the Kiefer Foundation is.
Yeah, well, I'll start just by saying, yeah, we lost Mitchell. It was 8 years ago last month on September 19th. Mitchell had come off an amazing high school career. As I mentioned, he was part of the Detroit Catholic Central State Championship hockey team, some of the best days of his life in the spring of 2016. He had a great summer of 2016, and he was in his first month as a new college student. We had just moved him up to Michigan State University, where he was going to study neuroscience, or he was studying neuroscience. He was literally there only for 1 month, though. He came home one weekend for a Detroit Lions game and was driving up on a beautiful Monday morning. It was 7:50 in the morning. Perfect weather, dry roads, no reason for a crash. Traffic slowed, he slowed, and unfortunately, the young lady behind him did not. So she was on her phone on Snapchat, and she rear-ended Mitchell's brand new Chevy Malibu, which was then driven across a very narrow strip of grass into oncoming traffic, where a truck coming from the other direction hit him and killed him instantly. So that was obviously the worst day of our lives, getting that news and trying to cope with just unimaginable loss. And it was really in that first week after losing him that we decided as a family that we had to do something. Mitchell always said he wanted to change the world, and he was going to change the world in some positive way. So we all just agreed that we need to change the world in his memory.
That's pretty incredible. And again, I'm so sorry for that. And I can only imagine what goes through your mind knowing that it's a preventable cause and it's something that is really simple when you think about it. So, for everyone out there, I feel like we all take that for granted, and I think we all get into those really bad habits. And I'm not sure it's logical that you wouldn't text and drive or be on Snapchat or any distracted driving. It's very logical in our brain. Like it doesn't make sense. It's dangerous. But I think we just get in that habit, and that's that rush, rush, rush world we're in. And we can't wait till we get to the destination to complete these tasks. And I'm not sure if that is part of it, but as part of your awareness and getting this out to people, what are you trying to accomplish with your outreach?
Yeah, so we do work under these three pillars of awareness, technology, and legislation, which we can talk about each of them. But from an awareness standpoint, I think it's just important to have people understand how serious this is without it happening to them. So I'll give you an example. I often refer to myself as a recovering distracted driver, and certainly in the summer of 2016, I was as bad as anybody. I used to, and I'm an automotive guy. I knew the dangers, but I also thought
Right.
really good at it. I could steer with my knee and drink a coffee with my left hand and hold the phone on the dash.
Yeah.
That's at it, thinking that I was doing it in a safe way. And of course, I'm horrified
Right.
to tell that now. But I do tell that because I think everybody either does it or has an urge to do it. So the phone is so addicting that people are certainly drawn to do that.
Sure.
We try to tell the story because my life changed and my behavior changed instantly when I got that phone call. I've never done it again. So
Yeah.
how do I tell the story in a way that will make you and every one of your listeners really feel it personally and understand that it could be their child tomorrow or themselves tomorrow? And hopefully that can motivate someone to change behavior. Also,
Yeah.
with the awareness, I think I knew how dangerous this was, but I didn't know the statistics in detail until it happened to us. And when you start to look into this, 1.3 million people get killed every year on the roads of the world. In this country, it was about 44,000 last year that were killed on the roads of the
Okay.
U.S. And although the
Wow.
data says that it's about 10% of them that are distracted, we know it's way underreported. Mitchell's crash wasn't even reported as a distracted driving crash. So we think the number is probably about 50%. So,
Wow.
if you can just kind of do the math on that, that says that today 120 people will die in the U.S. On the roads of the U.S. Probably about half of them, about 60 of them, will be due to distraction, and the remainder just speeding and impairment and
Sure.
other issues. But I try to remind people of that because it's staggering. I mean, we're obviously we hate to compare these things, but we were just talking about the horrific storm that happened in the South. At first, it was 120 people that died the first day, and I got to thinking, I mean, this is horrific. But on that same
Yeah.
day, 120 people were killed on the roads.
On the roads.
We're not doing enough to try to combat that. So, unfortunately, there's no limit to victims' families like mine. Every day, another 120 families are created that are, mourning the same way and trying to figure out how to help it. So, I hope
Sure.
those numbers sort of, and of course, we could go through the numbers state by state by state because we are
Yeah.
on trying to correct this. But the numbers really are staggering, and hopefully that resonates with people. That one glance at the phone can cause a crash that may take your life, a child's life, or someone else.
The numbers are staggering, and I know that you had mentioned you've worked or there's legislation in 31 states. Is that what you said at this point?
Yeah, so under our legislative pillar, we work on something we call hands-free USA. It means trying to get we call hands-free laws are very simple. It basically is a law that says it's illegal to hold a mobile device while you're driving an automobile. By the way, every developed nation in the world has this. You wouldn't think of holding your phone while you're driving in Europe. You'd be ticketed and
Hmm.
points on your license. Yet here in the States, traffic laws are state laws, so we have to do it state by state. And we've been successful now in getting those laws passed in 31 states. So in 31 states, it's illegal to hold the phone while you're driving an automobile. It's a primary offense. So police officers seeing someone hold the phone can pull them over. And the fines vary from at the low end, $30, at the high end, close to $1,000. But I don't think the fine is the most important part. The most important part is making sure everyone understands that the behavior is illegal. So as I said, we got 31 states done, including my home state, just about a year ago. In every
Mhm.
state we get these laws passed, the crashes and fatalities tend to drop about 10 to 20%. We have a company that we work with called Cambridge Mobile Telematics that can monitor how people are using their phone in the car. And their data would say that in June of this year, 1 year after the law being passed in Michigan, distractions were down 19.7%. So we know that the laws work. They're not perfect, but we
Okay.
feel they're foundational because until it's illegal, an illegal behavior, you really can't then start coming up with solutions to eliminate it. It's very analogous to drunk driving in the 80s and 90s when Mothers Against Drunk Drivers came along, pushed very
Mhm.
fines, sat in courtrooms and made sure people lost their license, and that has changed behavior.
Yeah, it absolutely helps. I know, ironically, yesterday, the company you just referenced, what was the name of it? It was Cambridge Mobile Telematics, correct?
Mobile telematics.
They just came out with a report from Missouri, which is where we are. And for us, and it's not illegal yet. Or at least they're not doing anything until I think January 1st of 2025. We're already down 5% here, which means that 1,000 crashes have been prevented, 600 injuries, and 5 fatalities, which has resulted in a reduction of 22 million in economic damages. When I read that, I was shocked. And it's not even in effect yet
Right.
completely until the beginning of this next year. So just to even see those numbers kind of in your face, like, wow, this is amazing. You don't realize how it's impacting families, the economy, everything that's wrapped up into the results of these horrific crashes. It's pretty telling that they can make a difference with this legislation.
Yeah, it really is. We know it helps, and again, I just hope your listeners think about that because it's hard to count things that don't happen. But imagine 5 people are alive, and it could be your child. It could very well be your child that has been saved by this. You'll never know, but
Yeah,
someone's 5 children are alive today,
right.
and otherwise may not be.
Because of that. So when you go into these states, is it just time or the processes that, to me, it would be like, this is a no-brainer. Why does it take long to get done? Why wouldn't they sign it tomorrow? Because of all these wonderful results in, life spared and economic damages spared. What is the roadblock there? Or is there one?
There's definitely a roadblock. Legislative change is hard. I've learned. I didn't do it in my earlier career, so this is these last 8 years have been my first sort of run at this. What you'll find in every state that there's always resistance to change. So even something that should be non-controversial like road safety, you'll always find
Mhm.
some people that will be opponents. Generally, the people that are arguing against this legislation are people that I would say are generally far right, maybe leaning libertarian, that really will talk about civil liberties, personal freedom. Don't tell me what I can do in my car. Government overreach. I'm a
Mhm.
Republican. Less legislation is good. We should really be careful with any more legislation. And those are all, interesting arguments. But usually what I say back to them is, if you want to argue civil liberties about wearing your seatbelt or wearing a helmet while you're riding a motorcycle, which are also laws, I get that. I mean, more power to you if you want to not do those things and, you may be killed in a crash. But this is different. This is like drunk driving because when you're using your personal freedom of looking at your phone, you're blindfolded, and
Mhm.
that's what's going to kill my kid. And now we've got a different discussion. So usually when I explain that to legislators, they kind of get it. But
Sure.
and I would just say that we generally survey. So our process is quite simple. We have a model bill that's just written in plain English that every state can use. Every state's got different processes and different timelines, of course. So they
Sure.
a bill. We try to find really powerful bipartisan bill sponsors, Republicans and Dems that are like-minded, and then we bring a lot of victims' families together and we testify and we push for this, and eventually we get it done. In my home state, it took 5 years with full support of
Wow.
the governor from the beginning. In this particular case, I hate to say it, but it was all politics. The Republican leaders of our Senate did not want the Democratic governor to have a win in traffic safety,
Mm.
so they wouldn't
Hmm.
hear it in the Senate. And literally, as I told the Senate leader, well, you've just blocked this thing for another year. 1,000 people will die in Michigan this year, and a good 20% of them could have been saved. But you're playing politics, basically delayed it 1 year. And unfortunately, there's more cases of that than I hate to admit.
I believe that 100%, unfortunately. And obviously that's terrible to hear just because they're supposed to be working for all people. So I get the frustration. I can only imagine. It sounds like you kind of have to show up with a full army. Are you leading this charge in every state, you personally, or is this your foundation, or how is this working for you?
Yeah, we have some great partners. I work with another nonprofit called StopDistractions.org. A good friend of mine, Jennifer Smith, lost her mother to a distracted driver several years ago, and she's been on a crusade to do this in every state. So she's got a great network. She's got a great network of grassroots victims' families, and then what we do is in every state we just pull together a coalition. So right now our next top priority is Florida. And we've got a number of victims' families, a number of law enforcement, Department of Transportation, insurance companies, other influential people that become the coalition for Florida. We usually try to find a good, strong leader who can manage us through it. And then I got to give credit to my former employee, General Motors, has just been great. They've made this a priority around the country, and the General Motors government relations team and the lobbyists for General Motors help us in every state as well. And of course, when General Motors calls, we can usually get an audience with the House and Senate leaders and even the governor. So we've had a lot of help. And as you said, it's common sense. If you survey people, as we do in every state, 85% of the people typically are fully supportive of it. Yet we still have legislators that will slow play it or not hear it, and it's a bit frustrating. But we will get it done in all 50 states before we're done.
Yeah, which is an incredible goal, and the fight continues, and it sounds like you're not going to stop until you get all 50 states, which is very encouraging. And wow, that's a lot. So how do you get the coalitions to get together? Is this outreach just through, like, is there some kind of call to action for these things in each state, or how do you get everyone together?
Yeah, it really is. It starts with victims' families, and we kind of get a group of like-minded people together, and then we start to use our lobbyists to identify who are the most influential legislators, because that's really important to get a bill sponsor that will actually be able to carry it. As I said, we have 120 people getting killed every day in this country. Every legislator's got a story. I mean, either they got a direct family member or they've got a person in their district that has been impacted. So it's never a problem to find like-minded people. We just try to pull together the most influential, the ones that are most successful in getting things done, and then it's just standard sort of program management. We pull the team together. We look at the timeline. Every state is different, so you need some legislative experts. For example, the session in Florida starts March 4th. So we've got a timeline from now till March 4th that's going to get the bill sponsors, get the public opinion behind it, get the sheriffs behind it, get all the media, the news and TV and printed press and social media all on board, and then just march through this such that when March comes along, the session starts. This will be one of the highest priorities in Florida. So we've taken a few runs at it. I'll just say that in Florida this past year, we got it through the House with unanimous support, which is really quite incredible, right? We haven't seen that in any state. But then when it was time to go to the Senate, we had another example of people playing politics, and wouldn't even hear it in a committee. So it died. It died on the vine, let's say, as we say in the session this year. So
Right.
we're working hard to make sure that we've got everybody aligned so that doesn't happen next year.
Yeah. And I can imagine how frustrating
Mm.
that is. So your organization, I know you're the chairman. How many people are working in your organization to get all of this done?
Uh-huh. Well, you'd think it'd be a big army. I'd like to say it's thousands because we do have thousands of supporters and donors and volunteers. The reality is, it's just a small group of us. There's about five of us on the board that are basically doing most of the work. But we've been very blessed to have great support, great donors, so we're able to do some decent fundraising, and we really try to. Use our leverage by working with other like-minded nonprofit organizations, like the one I mentioned earlier, StopDistractions.org, as an example. With our fundraising, we help support them so that they can get these state-by-state things done with our help. We've got a couple of safe driving schools that we work with that we also share our resources with. So we definitely are not trying to control this in any way. This idea of not invented here, that's not us. We will work with and plagiarize and support and give away anything we can. And again, we don't. We talk about distracted driving, but for me, it's really the bigger number. It's the 1.3 million people that get killed every year. So I'm just as passionate about drunk driving, impaired driving, people wearing seatbelts, speeding laws. All of these things will bring that number down, and we're really actually trying to promote all of those things.
Which is fantastic. I mean, we've spoken with, unfortunately, a number of individuals who have lost loved ones due to drunk driving, impaired driving in some way, shape, or form. So it all matters. They're all very big issues and ones that are preventable. And that's what's difficult is trying to get it through everyone's brain that these are things that don't need to happen. You just need to be smarter and really take care of not only yourself, but other people out there that are going to be at risk for your actions. And I think that's tough for people to think through sometimes. I think they just get wrapped into their day and they move forward with their bad habits. So as part of your campaign, you have a couple things going on. I see the Just Drive. You have the Just Drive
Yeah.
campaign, right? That's part of, like, that's your hashtag or your
Yeah,
overall
we were, as part
verbiage.
of our awareness campaign, we were trying to come up with something that was just really simple. I always use the example when I was growing up. Nancy Reagan said, "Just say no," and it was everyone knew
Yeah.
what that meant. So there's a lot of
Yes.
organizations, a lot of similar phrases out there, but we opted for this very simple term, "Just Drive." It translates well all over the world, and our message is simple: when you're behind the wheel, put your phones down and just drive. We kicked this off. It's going on 3 years now. 3 years ago, our good friend Tom Brady made the first video using this logo on his shirt and basically, put that message out. And of course, that went viral, and we got a number of other celebrity supporters. So if you go to our website, mkiefer.org, you can see videos from Tom Brady and Mark Wahlberg and Steve Eiserman and Mary Barra, the CEO of General Motors, all sort of saying the same thing: put your phones down and just drive. The paddles are kind of interesting. These are officially hand fans for
Right.
hot minutes, but in reality, people keep them on their passenger seat, and it's kind of a nice way to call someone out.
Yeah.
We don't condone that because it is kind of distracting, but I always say it's better than the horn or the finger. So people are doing
That's
people
true.
are doing that quite often, and if any of your listeners need paddles, we're glad to send them
Yeah.
all over the
That's
world.
wonderful. I love that. I noticed it was like the fan, and I think that's pretty cool. And it's very simple, the term and just the visual of it. So I think it's a nice thing to share. And it's really simple. You're in a car, just drive. That's what you're supposed to do. So
Exactly.
it seems pretty simple. And even since, following your story on LinkedIn and just seeing everything you're doing, I think about it more so, and I catch myself like, okay, put it down. I mean, it's something that it seems so simple. We just have to constantly remind ourselves, each day, that focus on the road. And then you wanted to also talk about some of the technology. That's another one of your pillars.
Yeah, so again, we say awareness, technology, and legislation. So coming to the technology, there's no limit to the technology that's available that can make that can allow people to keep their eyes on the road and their hands on the wheel. So we always are promoting things like if you have a newer car, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. I mean, we'd prefer that you just focus on the road, but if you need to stay connected, that's a safe way to do it with just voice commands and keeping your eyes on the road and your hands on the wheel. There's a function, of course, on iPhones and Android-based phones, the safe driving mode or focus mode, that we encourage everyone just turn that on. That basically sends a message when somebody calls you or texts you while you're driving your car, sends a message back that says, "I'm sorry, I'm driving. I can't respond right now. I'll call you when I get to a safe place." That is great to stop you from being distracted, and it also sends a great message to your family and friends and colleagues that are sending messages. And then there's newer technology in automobiles that are actually monitoring your eyes while you're driving a car. I drive a Cadillac with a product called Super Cruise, which is sort of semi-autonomous on highways. And so I'm driving without my hands on the wheel or my feet on the pedal, but my eyes must be on the road because there's a camera that's watching my eyes. And if I'm distracted or drowsy, it will shut the car down. So there's technology, and that's mandated in all new cars in Europe right now. So technology like that could do this. And again, there's no limit to the safe driving apps. The one we mentioned earlier from Cambridge Mobile Telematics is offered through 24 of the largest insurance companies in the world. These things will be addicting because they make you drive safe. And if you get a score above, let's say 90, you'll get 20 to 30% reduction in your auto insurance. So I sound like an insurance salesman, but those things are just really really powerful tools that can save a lot of money, but also can save a lot of lives. And then the last one I'll just mention, because as part of our awareness campaign and also using technology, we're trying to come up with a way to bring the dangers of distracted driving and the experience into the classroom and into the driver's ed program. So we're just rolling out this new what we call Just Drive simulator. So this is based on augmented reality, and basically we give this to young drivers, and they can experience basically in a very realistic setting the dangers of responding to a phone call or a text, looking away, and then having a crash. So that's in its early stages. We hope to roll it out officially in January of the new year at the Detroit Auto Show. And we're obviously looking now for partners that want to support us on this. But our real hope is to get these goggles. We happen to be using the MetaQuest 3 goggles, but we could probably manage this with any product. But our goal is to really get this to every young driver and eventually even older drivers. I mean, this is a problem for everyone, but we feel like getting these into the high schools, the driver's ed programs, and even into the middle schools, because we want to catch kids before they start driving. We think this is a very effective way. And of course, all the kids are, the young people are familiar with augmented reality, and there's all kinds of other educational and STEM programs that we can put into these. So our safe driving simulator is just one of many apps that can be used. And again, when you experience, it's startling when you crash, even in augmented reality. And hopefully that leaves people with the impression that will maybe change their behavior.
I completely agree with that, giving them a true impression of what the result of their action could be. And I definitely agree that that younger age group, that middle school age group, first of all, they're huge into the gaming. Then it catches them prior to them starting these bad habits. Have you ever thought about like kind of tacking on to like the DARE programs? I don't know if you have that where you are. But we have that in Missouri where it's more about drugs and things of that nature. But like you could have that as part of a program like that within the schools. I think that would be interesting because they don't always have driver's ed courses. It was optional, at least for us. You didn't have to take driver's ed. So I didn't know if that was an option or something you've talked about or.
Yeah, we're actually talking about any path to get these into more people's hands. So, Mothers Against Drunk Drivers have been a great partner. We're starting to come up with some concepts that can simulate impaired driving as well. So I think you can do anything with software these days. We've partnered in the past with SAD, which is the Students Against, I think it's Destructive Decisions, but the similar to DARE. And any organization that has reach into a large group of people is a perfect candidate for us because again, anybody that's a driver or a passenger in a car or even a pedestrian is a target audience and at risk these days. Back to the middle schoolers too. What we're finding is when you get this ingrained in the middle schoolers, they tend to be the ones that call out the parents.
Right.
If they're, and most people, I've talked to a lot of parents that have said, geez, you've got my kid policing me now, which is great. I mean, that's where we want to start. And hopefully there will be a generation that will understand these dangers and won't touch their phones while they're driving.
Right. And I agree. And I have to say our youngest son, 13, has called me out before. And it's so true. I think as adults, you just think you have everything under control. And like you said, oh, you'll drive with your knee or you'll hold something or whatever, see a video. And it's not right. It needs to change. And those are habits that if people point out, it does help you pay attention to that. So I think it's helpful to get that in the younger kids' hands. Certainly very interesting to show them that. And with GM, have you worked with them on any additional technology, just having your experience there and speaking through, what they could potentially do in their cars or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the not just GM, but the whole auto industry has an army of people working. So as much as people say the infotainment screens are the problem or distracting, and they can be, I do want to acknowledge the engineers that are working hard to make them as minimize the distractions of the infotainment screen. The other thing I would just say is the safety features in the automobile these days. I mean, airbags, of course, have saved millions of lives, but also, this emergency braking or lane keep assist or good backup cameras. All of these things are really improving the safety of the automobile. But in many cases, and let me also add the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, or Google Assistant, these things allow people to focus on the road, but it takes some training. I mean, people have to use it. I don't know how many times I see brand new automobiles with people holding their phone, and everyone's got a Bluetooth enabled system these days. So there's some education required because the auto industry has a ton of great safety features, yet the number of crashes and fatalities are on the increase. I'll just say we often talk about we refer to it as a road to zero. Zero, a world with zero fatalities. And some will talk about, we have a vision of zero deaths on the road by 2050. Well, that's great, but what about 2025 and 2030? So we're really trying to bring some targets to the near term and really put initiatives in place that will start bringing this down. We talk about road to zero, but the reality is fatalities are up 22% over the last 15 years in this country. So this slope is not a road to zero, and we've got to start turning this around. And it's partially legislation, a lot of awareness, and some technology, but really it all gets at human behavior, and people have to understand how dangerous this is. And if they use the technology that's available and put the phones down and just drive, we could eliminate probably half of those crashes by the end of the decade.
It's a big mountain to climb, as I'm sure you're witnessing yourself. And I really do hope that through all of your awareness and everything that you're putting into this, that you are making a difference, which you are by the numbers, which I think is a wonderful way to share that with people. I'm wondering if like commercials would help. I mean, there's so many different ways. I'm sure you've thought about this slicing and dicing, and if there are things that you can share with us going forward that we can help, provide to our listeners, I think that would be wonderful. We obviously want to help people who are not only victims of this, get through and figure out there are resources and ways to make a difference, but just that we can educate people in general, I think is the goal. Because like you said, there are so many, what you said, 120 a day
120 people a day will be killed on the roads of the U.S.
in the US. Wow.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate because it sounds like our international counterparts are just doing a much better job of reining this in. And we're supposedly one of the best countries in the world, and I don't understand why we can't figure that out a little bit faster. Like you said, getting to that road to zero a little bit faster. So
Yeah, we often say if a plane crashed today with 120 people on it, and then again tomorrow, we'd shut down the skies until we figured out what was the problem with air traffic or the plane or the pilot or whatever. Yet
yeah,
there are 120 people will die today And it's harsh to say we're doing nothing because there's thousands of people doing a lot, but
Sure.
not doing enough. And it's effort is one thing, but results matter. And
Mhm.
we're not bringing down the number of fatalities at the rate that we should be. And again, there's no shortage of technical and legislative solutions that could really get at this if we just had the will to do it.
And I do think that it's going to be the policing of it. When people start realizing they're going to get caught, it's not even the amount of the fine, it's the hassle of dealing with the fine. I mean, I do think that will help also very much. I think
Yeah.
that they've got to get their hands slapped or they're just going to keep doing it, honestly.
Yeah.
I think that'll change.
Maybe with that I'll give you one more example of
Yeah.
work with a company called AccuSensus out of Australia, and there's a state in Australia that implemented automated ticketing through cameras. So these were high power special cameras that could look through the windshield and see if you had a seatbelt and see if you were holding a phone. They were mobile, so they could be moved to different parts of the state continuously, and they were issuing very significant tickets for any holding of the phone or not wearing the seatbelt. And people got automated tickets, an incredible number of them the first month, and the behavior changed within 3. They stopped doing it. So, you look at that and you say, in this country, well, that's Big Brother. We don't want, cameras watching us everywhere. We don't want automated ticketing. Well, automated speed control, automated ticketing in this sense, that would work. It's proven to work. We just get over this fear of Big Brother because, as you know, there's just not enough police officers out there to enforce these laws. And really, what a waste of time to have the police officers do it when you could do it in automated fashion. That's very controversial in most states to bring that up. But again, it's another one. As I say, there's no lack of technology. I mean, people would
Sure.
tomorrow if they all got $500 tickets today on an automated camera. So
That would wake me up. I've had to deal with my husband's tickets a few times and I don't speed at all anymore. And just because it changes behavior. And so I do wonder why we don't go for some of those things. I understand it's Big Brother, although I'm not sure what showing you on a camera with
right.
holding a phone is a big deal, but it would absolutely change behavior. And I wish they would do a study to show, I mean, I'm sure there are studies. Pick a city here in the US, do it, see how the behavior changed and give us these statistics that you already have for other reasons. I would love to see that math and see what happened. It'd be pretty incredible.
Yeah, we have a bill right now here in Michigan that's proposing those cameras only in construction zones, and I think that would be a great start. What a great
Would.
to start the process, and identify people that aren't moving over in construction zones, people that are speeding in construction zones, people that are on their phone and not wearing seatbelts in construction zones.
Yeah.
If we started with that, I think the data would be so powerful, and if we truly cared about saving lives, we could deploy
Yeah.
those all over the state, all over the country, and really change
Hmm.
behavior quickly. So those are good examples of things that we just have to get some more energy around, and it's
Sure.
people being aware that this can happen to you, and please get involved before it does happen to you.
Absolutely. Well, I know we're running short on time. I want to thank you for your time today and all of the information you provided. We will absolutely share your website and any corresponding information that will help get our listeners more data and more ways to work through how they can make a difference. And I would love to hear more about how this goes with the simulations. And I'm going to think through who could even use that, like around here, police departments, what have you. I think that's a great idea, just to give them that visual. It makes a big difference. So
Well, we'd love to have you as part of our Missouri coalition because every
there you go.
has one, and getting the laws passed is one big hurdle. But then enforcing and keeping the awareness level up, it's forever. I mean, you have to keep doing that because all the stats say these laws work, but they only work if we continue to enforce and make people aware.
Sure.
And that's really important in every state. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks again for your time. And, we'll be in touch and we'll be sharing out all that information. And best of luck with everything you've got going on.
Thank you so much. And thanks for taking the time to help us spread the message.
You've been listening to Life Beyond Loss, a podcast from Survival in the Trenches. If you'd like to get involved and help those struggling to cope with personal loss, visit us at our website, survivalitt.com, and follow us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe and share this podcast so we can continue to grow and reach more people in need. Together, we can make a difference.